Welcome, everyone, to our Wednesday night Letting Go class with Guy Finley. My name is Terry. We both have a virtual audience like yourself, and we also have an in-person audience here in beautiful Southern Oregon. So the format for the class on Wednesday nights, we call it Discovery Wednesday. In just a moment, Guy will come on and he will give a talk of about 1 hour, after which time we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll come back for a question and answer portion of the evening, and we do hope that you join in. It makes for such a great evening. Your questions and his answers are so helpful to all of us, so we do hope that you participate as well. Since this is a Discovery Wednesday, Guy will ask for your participation during the talk as well, which you can enter into in your chat area. And because we are in the tech world, you might have some technical difficulties this evening. If you do, Don't worry, we have our very own geek squad. Her name is Kate Rofdahl, and she is always right there behind the scenes. So if you're on GoToWebinar, just send a little questions area there. And if you're on YouTube or Facebook, just send a comment there, and she's always there taking care of things. We're very grateful for her. And last but not least, for everybody here in the room, if you did bring your cell phone in, please do make sure that you either turned it off or put it on airplane mode. And Guy, would you like me to read topic and/or key lesson?
Please.
Okay. The topic for this evening class is Heal the Pain of the Past in the Here and Now. And the key lesson is the higher purpose of suffering is to ground us in the existence and presence of an altogether higher level of our own being, where neither time nor the pain it harbors holds a claim on us. Discovering there's a choice like this transforms any moment of feeling lost, confused, or resentful into the possibility of realizing it as the new and higher opportunity it represents.
Good evening, everyone. And of course, good evening, good morning, or good afternoon to you who are joining us, wherever you are, whatever time it may be. I'm glad that you're here. What if what Terry just read as the key lesson for tonight's talk, what if that were actually true? That there is no moment that you run into where you suffer as you do now. That in that same moment isn't presenting you the possibility of discovering that there is a completely different choice you can make in that moment, and for that new choice, literally be transported into a world that is relatively timeless compared to the one you were in the moment before, and that for your new relationship to a greater time, to be able to look upon yourself and your past and your pain as the speck of suffering that it represents. A speck, nothing more. Not the whole world, not your whole life, not all the problems you have and the people that present them to you, but a speck. And you know what you can do with any speck that you catch? But let's not be too cavalier. There's quite a bit of distance between those moments. And when I mean distance, I don't mean in time and space. I don't mean the past moving into the future. I mean there's quite a bit of distance between our ears, between an understanding that has captured and enslaved humanity, made them, you and I, to whatever extent it's true, slaves of the past. It's not a pretty idea, but I'm telling you it's the truth. You are a slave to your past. The problem is you don't even know that it's your past that you're a slave to. Because every time you run into a present pain, it looks and says, this is because of my past. Because of what happened, what they did, what they didn't do for me, how I didn't get the break someone else did. So that you're forever looking at your own life through the eyes of the past, that in order to hide itself, constantly gives you some present experience of a suffering that you don't want, not knowing it isn't you that doesn't want it, but it is that middleman, it is that nature of the past that forever compares itself to everything so that it can stand out as the one who's being subjugated to this suffering. You're not on this planet to be subjugated to any suffering that isn't of your own choice. The question is, do you want to make it your choice so that you gain from it, or do you want to remain unconsciously suffering and paying the cost of being a human being whose consciousness belongs to a level of being that will never change and can never change and hasn't changed over millennia? It just keeps reincarnating itself, as you'll see as we go into the material tonight. This is a Wednesday night. If you've never joined us on a Wednesday night, and I hope that you have joined us, but I'm always glad when new men and women wander through this world that is presented to you from here in Southern Oregon. We explore things together on Wednesday nights. We look at a topic through the eyes of all the individuals in the room, and of course through the eyes of those of you who are willing to join us from wherever you are, assuming that it's live for you. By the way, I've never thought of that if you're watching this recorded, there's no point in you chiming in. And tonight we're going to look at this topic of how to heal the pain of the past in the here and now. It's pretty amazing, I think, that a person can spend so many moments of their life daily looking at what they see as the present moment and measuring that moment according to whatever the conditions are they find themselves in, and doing so from their reactions determine that the reason for their pain, their suffering, is because of what happened a moment, a day, a week, a year, 20 years ago. So that without ever even questioning it, that man or woman never stops looking at their pain in the present moment as the result of a process that took place some time in their past. So that for us, our pain in the present moment is always relegated to something that we see as having happened once upon a time somewhere in our past relationships with others or this life that we're in. Yes or no? And by the grace of God, I hope it's true for you anyway, at some point, a person starts to think, I've been blaming my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, the government, the religion, the community, the politic. I've been blaming the world at large, the climate. I've been blaming everything my whole life on my past. Because when you blame anything at all outside of yourself, you are blaming your pain on something from the past. Period. And having done that for millennia, never realizing how extraordinary it is. I'm never not visited by some strange spook, some ghost, that when it appears and goes, ooh, and doesn't look at this, you go, oh my God, you're right. That was terrible how that happened, and why is it like that, and what do I have to do? And then the same ghost from the past tells you, here's what you must do to escape me. Never suspecting that the ghosts of the past are in the framework itself of our consciousness. They are not separate creatures, nor the moments that they point to as reason for our pain, apart from the consciousness in which they appear. Be like a man running from one part of the house to another, hoping that he can escape the strange sounds that are coming out of the basement, believing if he can lock himself in the living room or the pleasure palace or whatever he's got, that somehow he'll avoid all of that suffering. But realizing wherever he goes, whatever room he enters into that house, he cannot escape being haunted by something that enters into it. Is this true or not, please? So I want to look at what is my past. Not just meet it like you always do from the same reaction that tells you, I realize this is because of this, and then start talking to yourself through all of the mechanical associations that always come up, high or low, light or dark, all of the justifications that help console you, having found yourself in the pain of something, and then trying to deal with that pain, because that's what the pain of the past basically tells you. You must find some way to deal with this, to cope with it, to change or control it, because outside of that, you have no hope. This is how you deal with this pain. Find a new teacher, a new teaching, a new guru, find a new dress, a new girlfriend, a new boyfriend. Do anything you can to replace the pain you feel in this moment with something that consoles you and at least lets you get by one more time the fact that you live in this haunted house, this consciousness that is haunted by the content of itself. And how we believe, because we have no other knowledge of it, that our past, do you not believe that your past belongs to another time? Yes or no? My past belongs to another time, and it is connected to a set of inescapable experiences that belong to that time that is separate from here and now, and that my job is to simply try as best I can to go get regressed, depressed, suppressed, impressed, whatever the pressings are that I need in order to get rid of the pain that I'm in, that's all part of this past that I can't seem to get past. Amen? Bring up the second key lesson, please. Write this down or copy it when you see it. It reads, the future that awaits us reveals itself to us each time we catch sight of how our past has accompanied us into the present moment. The future that awaits us reveals itself to us each time we catch sight of how our past has accompanied us into the present moment. What on earth does that mean, that the future reveals itself when we catch sight of something from our past? What it means is that in the moment where I catch sight of something from my past, I am looking at my future if I don't deal with what I'm shown in that moment. That's what it means. That the future you hope to reach when you're finally here, finally doing this, finally got that, the future you hope to reach is a projection of the past. The future the consolation, the idea of the reconciliation still coming your way when you get all the dots over the I's and cross the T's, all of that you imagine is not you imagining it. It is simply the past projecting itself into this consciousness as the time when you will finally be released from it. Can you follow that? So what are we saying? Take a nice deep breath. I do want to give you what I have been given. In some respects, that is the reason for my life. Because as a human being begins to realize that every single moment of their life, and I know what a stretch this is, Every single moment of your life is the first time you've been in it. Every single moment. There was a movie, Red Corner. I've talked about this before, but I continue to have insights. So, certain things, you read a book, you see something, somebody says something, and for whatever reason you go like that, like a squirrel, suddenly seeing a nut. You go, what was that? Why? Because that whatever it was that it was imparted through that visual image, the thought, what you heard, it instantaneously corresponds to a part of you that's sitting there waiting for it to feel, hear, and embrace what has been expressed to you. The part of you that's waiting is timeless. It came into this life with you, but what it is, the impression in time that touches it, it's kind of like, I don't know, what is it, the daisy? What flower opens itself when the sun hits it? The sunflower. There are flowers, most of them, by the way, are awakened by the first light, but they go like that when the light touches them. There are moments when you will hear or see things, you've had them or you wouldn't be here, where in that split second, it's the first time. Yes or no? Even though it's unbelievably familiar, it's still the first time, isn't it? So when I heard this line from Red Corner, this Chinese woman, and I can't remember the name of the actor, Richard Gere, who was accused of some crime and in a prison in China. They were walking along, and she said to him, because her spirituality, her psychology was so far superior to his, but she knew he had some quality that she could reach. And she was trying to teach him something about all that had taken place, because he was captured and caught up and abused and all the rest. And she pointed to these big stands of bamboo, and they were moving like that. They were just moving. And she said to him something like, "Do you know what that bamboo has been waiting for?" He said, "No." He said, "It's waiting for the breezes to pass into and through it, that it might in that moment dance as never before." Now, she didn't say as dance as never before. I'm adding that. That's the first time that they're touched by that. And it's the first time they've danced like that. But you and I, we never see things like that. We always see things through the eyes of something that knows what it's looking at, that has a comment to make about it. We see it through the eyes of the middleman, of the middlewoman. We see it, everything through the eyes of the past. Every thought that you have is the thought masking and burying inside of you the possibility of living from a life that doesn't require thought at all to understand the meaning of the moment. The meaning of the moment never stops speaking to you in the real here and now. It is always that way. And it's not just about the little things, the bamboo that moves or the trees caught in the breezes, the way the light breaks in the late afternoon on the mountainside. It's every last one of those moments is the first time. And you and I are the first creature. We are intended to be there the first time, every time, with everything that breaks in front of us and within us. Do you understand some of that? Can you feel some of that? It gets so old, people talking about, I don't want to repeat this, I don't want to do that. It's not you that doesn't want to repeat it. It is a part of you that in resisting that moment gives itself the experience of itself again, so that it can feel itself again and call itself that experience of resistance. That is not who you are. So, doesn't it seem, taking a transition, nice deep breath, doesn't it seem, or yes or no, does the past seem to follow you around? Yes. But the past that seems to follow you around isn't following you around. It goes with you everywhere you go. It is a consequence of being asleep to a level of consciousness, and by the way, that is individually and collectively. That experience is the consequence of being identified individually and collectively, meaning me, and of course this consciousness that we all share, of being identified with it, that doesn't understand the reason that the moment is experienced the way it is at first, at least in the way it's introduced into this consciousness, is because that moment, the breeze, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to say, has come to touch the bamboo, the wood head, whatever it is that's moving that in that moment, is doing so that that part of that consciousness can realize it has been incomplete to that moment. I have come into the moment bringing with me all of these old thoughts and feelings, all of these images and beliefs, these experiences of myself that are so precious to me that I can't do anything other than hope they keep going or they'd never happen again. And we don't realize that every time we're touched by what we call the pain of the past, it isn't the pain of the past that's touching us. It is the presence of that celestial, spiritual breeze moving into this consciousness to help awaken it to where it refused the breeze the last time it appeared and never was integrated into the greater whole that that breeze comes out of in order to integrate that consciousness and make it whole, heal it. I know I went pretty fast, but were you able to absorb that? So for the first part, healing the past is not a question of time. The healing of the past is not a question of time. And the first thing you need to recognize is that's exactly how you look at it. Forever revisiting certain conditions that come up in the consciousness in any given moment where a certain condition triggers some of that content that sits there fomenting, incomplete, broken, and fragmented, and when it's touched, up it comes. And then it talks to you and says, see, I'm still here. You need new therapy. You need new drugs. You need something to deal with this because you've never been delivered from it. So you must do something to deal with it as if it were outside of you. And by the way, thought is outside of you. No thought you will ever have is going to heal the pain of the past. No thought, no Jesus that you call on in its image and whatever that word is. No Buddha, no Lao Tse, no Muhammad. All of that is sheer absolute nonsense. And by the way, all of those gods that we have made in our own image, not that there isn't something divine, because there is, were made because this past, this pain, was constantly looking for something it could call upon to rescue it from itself. And so it created these things in its own image. And then the image becomes the thing. And when the image becomes the thing, the past becomes real, and we pursue it at all costs in order to bring it into our life that we might escape the very thing that created it. Healing the past is not a question of time. I've introduced the idea, I'll finish it. If the past is inseparable for the level of consciousness responsible for it, is the past not inseparable from the level of consciousness that carries it? Yes or no? It is inseparable. If it is in fact inseparable, the way I'm describing it, then that which happens in the present moment is not because the present moment has suddenly produced this pain, but rather because one of these breezes, the living word, the Holy Spirit, the active force, call it what you will, when it comes in, suddenly it actuates, it activates this part of this consciousness laying in the sleep, slumber, and shadows of itself. And suddenly they come up, and because we don't understand why it has appeared, all we know to do is what the past tells us to do when that pain appears, which is what? Avoid it. Try to control it. Try to change it. Find a substitute for it. And every substitute that you and I have been given for this pain that constantly appears is, in fact, the reincarnation of the consciousness responsible for that pain. Still with me, everybody? Let me see you look like you're alive, please. We think of, what we think of being the past essentially is a collage. How many of you know what a collage is? For those of you who don't know, a collage is like a board where you cut out all kinds of weird things and put seashells and magnets and puppy dogs. You paste everything to this board and you make a collage, which are nice. A mosaic is a kind of collage out of glass or tile, but a collage has all these independent elements. What we think of as being in the past is a collage of familiar but disjointed memory-induced images. That's what we call the past. A collage of disjointed memory-induced images that is what? The creation of a consciousness that constantly is reconditioning itself, strengthening its attachment to every one of those images every time. So the collage becomes more and more glued on, firmer and firmer in our life. Do you see it with me? And what is that, the material of that collage made from? The past. From the content of itself. From the content of that consciousness trying to escape its past by gluing together all these pieces to bring about a new form of peace, it's actually just perpetuating itself over and over and over again with everything that it does. So what we call the past, if you can follow this, is a reflection of a reflection. The first past caught in this mind, now it revisits the reflection and it reflects on it and tries to figure out what to do to escape what amounts to nothing other than a reflection of itself. Imagine something looking at itself, not knowing it's looking at itself, and then trying to figure out how to escape itself. That is our consciousness as it's presently constituted. Can you see that with me? Now, how many of you, to some extent or another, recognize that we're talking about, individually and collectively, our consciousness, and that pretty much wherever we go, there it is. Now, I don't know how old you are. Say it silently to yourself, because I know most of you won't say it out loud. But, and let's bring up the list that we can start working on together. Ready? If you could travel back in time and take with you some of the things you've seen are true about yourself and how your life has unfolded, what would you want to tell yourself? If you could travel back in time, go see yourself when you were 10, 12, 15, 20, 25 years old. In that time maybe where that thing that still bothers you goes on. If you could travel back in time and take with you some of the things, the understanding you've gained that you know is true about yourself, and as a result how your life has unfolded, what would you want to tell yourself? Do you understand the question? Let me prime the pump like I always do, just to give everybody a certain idea. Now, what I'm going to say is something that I'm working on. I'm working on a bigger project. But this just happened to fall into the project that I'm working on. It'll either be a book or a new album of some kind. So I'm not going to talk about, in quotes, specific things in my consciousness. Like most of us, if I could go back, I'd tell myself, chocolate's not your friend. Like don't go down, don't take the sugar road. It doesn't have a happy ending. Whatever it'll be, or it'll be, if I tell myself, get out of that chair. That's kind of, you might be throwing stuff like that in, but I have some others at a different level, and I'm welcoming everybody out there, as I am inside of the room here, to share. If I could go back and talk to myself, I would tell myself something that I didn't hear until I was in my late 20s. I would tell myself, Guy, listen up. For whatever it's worth, you're not the only one who suffers. That's what I would tell myself. If I could go back, I had to wait until I was almost 30 years old to have that shock. I might say something like, Guy, all of the passions that you have, whatever you feed, it's going to grow. So you better be sure before you feed it that you want it to grow. So those are some of the things, if I could go back into my past, I would tell my younger self so that it would be forewarned and forearmed, if you will, to be aware of its tendencies, of what its essence is drawn to, and of the way it looks at life and the way it thinks about itself. I would want to seed into it the knowledge that I've gained after 75 years that I didn't have when I was 25 years old, or 15, or whatever it might be. So, now, your turn. Chris.
You don't have to try and control everything in your life.
So Chris would go back and say, you don't have to control everything in your life. Boy, the list is already building here. Let me get a few in the room, then I'm going to jump to the list. Yes, Jane.
Happiness doesn't come from anything outside of yourself.
You're not going to find happiness outside of yourself. Rebecca writes, I would tell myself life is an unscripted journey that I'm equipped for even when I don't seem to like it. Just do it, she said. Fiona says, let life happen and be present. No need to go out and grab it. In the room, who's got some? Wayne.
Don't take everything so personally.
Stop taking everything so personally. That's a good one, isn't it, Debbie?
Don't listen to a liar.
Don't listen to a liar?
Yes.
Okay. That's a little vague.
Well, inside yourself or anybody,
Well, then don't be so spiritual, okay? It kind of makes me want to gag. Here's what Debbie was saying. Sleeping, you would tell yourself, a sleeping human being is a desperate human being, and all human beings are asleep. On the board, going by pretty quick here. Wow. Fiona, I got that. Judith, don't assume what you imagine is true. Deborah, I would tell myself that I do not need anyone else's approval. That's a good one. In the room, anybody? John.
Be bolder, don't hide.
Don't be such a wuss. Step up, right? Risk it. That would be a good one, wouldn't it? Dana, you aren't the voice in your head and the related images. Lindsay, only you can complete yourself. Nothing external will complete you. Yes?
Don't imagine the finish line. Just take the next step.
Take the next step. Try not to have a finish line, which is the same as saying if you don't want to be anxious for the rest of your life, be here. Gino, there is something new in every moment to learn about myself. Okay, we'll go on. Robert, don't follow others to your own self be true. That's nice. But a lot of us heard to your own self be true when we were a younger person, didn't we? I know I did. Who else in the room? Anybody? Terry.
Let others be right.
Stop defending yourself. Stop defending yourself. Chica.
It's okay to make mistakes.
I think I've heard that from you before. Yeah. Chica said, it's okay to make mistakes. In other words, don't try to be perfect, let alone seen as that way. Because that's hell. Should we go on for a while with that, Chica? Yeah. Over on the board. Lindsay, no. Gina, no, I got that. Robert, no, I got that one already. Isabella, you don't need to prove that you can do everything yourself. John T., don't worry too much. Life has a way of working out. Oh, my goodness. Boy, a lot of people want to make a trip to the past. Yes, David.
Look up Guy Finley.
Oh, you tell yourself, go look up Guy Finley. You know what? That wouldn't be bad advice. Have something more important than what you think is important. Investigate your values. Find out whether or not what you're telling yourself is true. So many different ways that we are looking at these ideas that if we could go back in the past, we would certainly want to tell ourselves, would we not? Now this is fantastic. John, I got another. The board just keeps filling. John.
There's something greater than you.
You believe it or not, you're not all that your mother told you you are. Or either way, by the way, whether your mother told you you were the greatest thing since sliced bread, or your mother told you, as some of us heard, I wish you weren't born. We have heard everything come out of the mouths of parents, friends, and family. Some of it uplifting and some of it crushing. You would be able to tell yourself, listen, don't take what anybody says as being true. Find out for yourself. on the board. CC, people in bars. People in bars are not your friends. How long did it take to figure that one out? Deborah K., trust that everything is happening for your betterment. Don't hesitate, participate. Okay, that was great. Good Lord. Nice deep breath. So many things to tell ourselves. And yet, I come to this question. Do you think you would listen?
No, probably not.
Honestly, I'm asking you. Don't imagine yourself as what you do now, which is I'm spiritually open and all that. You show up and Guy shows up and he says, look, I know it's shocking. This is what you're going to look like in 45 years, which should be enough by itself to get you to want to change everything. I know it's shocking, but people suffer. Your mother suffers. Your father suffers. Everybody you know is suffering. And you have no clue. You don't see it at all. Now, what would I do with something like that? I'd think that especially in the late 20s and 30s, I think that I'd ingested a substance and I was hallucinating. I wouldn't accept the counsel. The only way I'd accept it is if I had a vague suspicion, because of all the pain that I've been in, that there was something in that I might want to look at some point. But it wouldn't become the end-all, be-all for me, would it? It wouldn't become the new ground of my understanding. It would be something added to my understanding. Yes or no, please, and then we're going to go on. So why wouldn't I listen? And if I did listen, why am I still 20, 30, 40 years later, why am I still dealing with all of that from the past? Do you understand the question? It's an important one. And I want to say something, break into my own talk. I'm going to run out. I knew it. I threw away 3 pages, but I'm going to go into it with something else downstream so we can keep working on this. You and I, because of this consciousness, believe that freedom is these little steps, these little increments. That I'm here, but I've seen this, and so I just have to cement that. And when I cement that, then I'll grow into this, and when I grow into that, then I'll be free of the past part of myself that I don't want to be. Real freedom from the past is not in time. And it doesn't take place in time. Enlightenment, for the true sense of the word, is instantaneous. It may not be entire, but it is complete in the moment. And when it is complete in the moment, the purpose of its completion in this consciousness is in that moment everything that had remained unreconciled, everything that had been incomplete, fragmented, broken, carried over, everything that was sitting there in the dark, in the shadows of this consciousness, in that moment it's illuminated. And in that moment it has changed. And that's why enlightenment isn't this one-all, be-all. Anybody that tells you that is full of BS. Because the fact is that you and I are created to be new every moment, and in order to be new, to be reborn every moment, we have to be enlightened every moment. We have to have what is in the dark of us constantly brought into the light so that it can become a new form that becomes the genesis and the seed of the next thing that will unfold in us. Can you understand that with me? So why am I incapable of listening? Why is it? I'm asking you. All of us have had this shock. I've been an aspirant for 4,000 years, and I'm still carrying with me the pain of 400 years ago. Yes or no? I'm still struggling. I'm so confused. What do I do about all this climate stuff and this racism and this and that's and all these things? I mean, what am I supposed to do? And you know why you're confused? Because the past that created these pains must create confusion so it can create choices for you that are the extension of itself. so that it never offers a genuine choice other than out of some form of conflict, which is what the past loves. The past loves conflict because it can never endingly offer you choices that promise to escape it when it's the source of the choices. Do you see that? Yes or no? John, I'm looking at you. You following me? All right. If you're following me, all is good. So why can't I listen? Take a nice deep breath. Wish that I had more time. I'm going to take you on a little journey. And when I was working on this material, it took the strangest turn. And I'm not even going to be able to get down one of the cul-de-sacs that I want to go down, but I just want to help you see something about this, about the hope in it. Not the futility or the suffering inherent in living from, I'm so confused, what am I going to do? Your identification with confusion is the past reiterating itself. Why do I have to be in pain over what I don't understand? Every day I don't understand anything. And that's an opportunity. Because it's an invitation to allow the breeze to come in and move the bamboo, move the wood head, and let it see something sitting in the garden of itself that's brought to life when it's moved. And then I get to see it. And then I get to go on because it goes on. And if I don't stay there attached to it, then I'm liberated from the idea and the identity of someone who knows something. I promise you one day, God willing, and every one of you, if you work, one day you will be in a position in one way or another where you will be helping or teaching others. That's what the bridge of consciousness is. That's why Buddha said what he said. Every master that's ever lived says, I'm never leaving here until every human being is free. And every human being is finally free when they themselves become a living, conscientious part of that bridge of understanding. What is it that's going on? Why is it so difficult? Here we go. Ready? You're going to wonder, where in the world did that come from? I'm going to spend the next 19 minutes talking about Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. I'm going to use it as a way for us to look at ourselves through the eyes of not just Dickens, but his characters Scrooge, Marley, the ghosts, Cratchit, Timothy, all of the characters inside of A Christmas Carol. And if you don't know it, it's so worthwhile. And I would say, Jesus, I'm surprised it hasn't been banned. Don't try not to look to anything that's very much present now in terms of the way things are. The best movie that was ever made was like from the late 40s. That was the best movie. Each version has been doctored. Here's the story if you don't know it. Scrooge is a mythical character in England who is, for all intents and purposes, a brilliant businessman, but the ultimate miser. He will only burn one lump of coal at a time in his office. And where Bob Cratchit, his one employee, has to sit and shiver as he counts all of Scrooge's money and the accounts that are due that he then sends Bob to go collect on, regardless of the fact that he has to throw people out of their homes. It's a characterization of a certain nature that is what? Me. It's all about me. And not is it all about me, but I want to make sure that everything about me goes on indefinitely, so I'm going to stretch out everything I've got and barely give myself anything at all. He lived in this home, old funky carpets hanging from the windows, one woman that worked from time to time cleaning the house. He ate, everything about him was a Scrooge. It's where the word Scrooge came from. You get the picture of Scrooge. So here we are on Christmas Eve. Darn it. I wish I had. Here we are, Christmas Eve, and he's sitting there, and he lets Bob Cratchit go home like 10 minutes earlier than usual after challenging him on it because he's being paid the whole amount. I hope you understand that he lives in you. You know how you'll persecute somebody over the most petty thing? What do you think that is? There he is in his house, And just before the hour of midnight, or right as it strikes midnight, I believe, all of a sudden appears in his room the ghost of Marley. Now, Marley was his partner. And his partner, Marley, died some time ago. And Scrooge, you learn that Scrooge didn't really care much about the fact that his partner of like 100 years passed away. And all of a sudden, here's Marley. And he comes in with this terrible sound of chains, long, heavy chains connected to his ankle. And he's floating around with these chains. And Scrooge thinks, I ate a bad pickle or something like that. I don't remember exactly what goes on. And Marley says to him, listen, look at me. Look what became of me. If you don't want to become like me, you have a chance now to avoid the same fate. That's why I've showed up here in your home on Christmas Eve. And you are going to be visited by 3 spirits, Scrooge. And those 3 spirits are going to give you a chance. You must listen to them no matter what. Or if you don't, you're going to be cursed to carry heavier chains than my own. However, he said, you will, if you are very attentive, will be offered a chance of redemption. To which, and by the way, Scrooge always said, anytime he resisted any revelation, what did he say? Bah humbug. Which is the same as saying, get out of here. You don't know anything. I know everything. Bah humbug. So that night, and this is a fascinating look at time. It's not discussed in the book, but I'm going to help you see it if I can get through it all. So that night, he's laying in bed, and certainly after midnight, there's a gong, and if you know the story at all, suddenly this ghost appears in his room. And it is, who are you? I am the ghost of Christmas past. And the ghost of Christmas past, which basically he says, you're not here. You're a figment of my imagination. At which point, as if to prove to Scrooge that she's not a figment of his imagination, all of a sudden he's whisked back into time. And he's whisked back into time where he gets to see moments of his past. And in particular, if I'm recollecting it properly, he was in love with, I think her name was Belle. Was that the name? He was in love with Belle, this beautiful girl, and he was promising this, who was working maybe for Marley at the time, I'm thinking. He was working for somebody who had a company that basically repossessed anybody's things that weren't paying their debts, like some kind of loan, thrift and loan. So there he is, and I don't remember exactly what goes on, but they have a chance to do something. He wants to ask her to marry him, but what happens is an opportunity to make some money comes up. This is the spirit of the thing. Please don't write to me and tell me, you ruined the story of Scrooge. I'm talking about an overview. Is that clear? And he throws it all away, and at which point she sees he is never going to be different than that. And so it's called off. She winds up marrying somebody else. And he's watching all this, and he sees her pain. And he sees all of the things in his past where he recognizes, to some extent, you might say he had a little sadness, but he, by and large, it just like water off of a duck's back. It didn't matter much to him what he was looking at. And why didn't what he was looking at matter much to him? I'll ask you. Anybody? Because of the middleman, because of something explaining to him why it had to be like that, and it could have been other with it, but at least it got like in what I am and what I've got. Something talking to him. His past that he was taken to visit in order to see what he did in it is then justifying everything that he did, and he's listening to it, identified with what he's being told, as much as he was in those days when something told him, go buy this, go do this, forget these other possibilities. Everybody following me? So he can see the effect of those choices that he makes. He wakes up. Next thing that happens in the story, it says it's a couple minutes after midnight again. So you, to the reader, you're thinking that time has gone on. It's next, in quotes, shortly after midnight, the ghost of Christmas present shows up. And it's very interesting. The ghost of Christmas present, if you ever saw the original carvings had a flame coming from its head. So it was indicating that it was something alive and present and illuminating. And the ghost of Christmas present, which Scrooge now actually no longer wants to see these ghosts, but takes Scrooge on a kind of a journey and takes him on a journey in the present and shows him all of these different things. Dickens in the 1800s, was it, Ellie? Yeah, I mean, England was a tough place. Every place was a tough place. And it takes him and it shows him some joys that are going on, like Christmas Day at his nephew's place. It flashes over to the Cratchit home where Bob and little Tim, who's paralyzed and about to die, they're celebrating what little plum pudding they've got. I mean, he's just and he's looking at all this stuff, but she also shows him people far away in other places. They're struggling and going through various scenes of festivity and depravity all at the same time. He's shown all this. And then it's indicated, as that's going on, that his future is not set in stone. And again, this is all alluded to, that what he's looking at that he saw in the past, that it can be changed. He's basically given encouragement that he can change things, that the thing to do is to use the time you have to do the most you can in order not to have to go through again what you are seeing. You don't have to be the one who deprives little Tim of his health. You can make changes. Be more generous, more forgiving. Everybody understand that? Next night, after midnight, the next ghost appears. Only this ghost doesn't have a flame coming from its head. It's dressed like death. It's a specter. I even think in the original it had a scepter with it. Yeah, it did, a scepter. You never want to wake up and see someone with a scepter standing by your bed, ever. And it's the ghost of what? Christmas future. Now, immediately we learn through Scrooge's character that this is a very ominous visitation. And it's not just ominous, but it seems to him that in that moment he is being carried off, and he is, by the ghost of Christmas future and where do they show up? In a graveyard. Now, where is that? I want to go through this. I was going to have actors, but I didn't have time. So the spirit and Scrooge stood among the graves, and the specter pointed down to one in particular. And Scrooge kind of already knew what was going on, and he says to the specter, "Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point," said Scrooge, "answer me one question. Are these the shadows of things that will be, or are they the shadow of things that may be only?" Still the ghost pointed down toward the graveyard by which it stood. "Men's courses will be foreshadowed." This is Scrooge talking. "Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends to which, if persevered in, they must lead," said Scrooge. I talked about how the past is the progenitor of the future. "But if the course is departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus with what you show me." The spirit was immovable as ever. Scrooge crept toward where the specter was, trembling as he went, and following the finger, following the finger of the specter, it pointed on a stone of a neglected grave where carved on the stone was Ebenezer Scrooge. Scrooge cried out, "Am I the man who lays upon that bed?" he cried, "upon his knees." The finger pointed from the grave to him and back again. Scrooge goes, "Oh, spirit, no, no, no." And the finger was still there, stiff as a board, pointing to the gravestone. "Spirit," cried Scrooge, tightening his clutch on the robe of the spirit on his knees. "Hear me, I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been but for this intercourse. Why show me this if all past, if I am past all hope? Why show me this if I am past all hope?" And this is interesting. And for the first time, the specter's hand began to shake. You know, in my stories, I always use how the specter, if you will, the appearing looming cloud, always starts to go through certain things as the hero starts to wake up. I was fascinated to see this in the Dickens thing. For the first time, the spirit's hand, as it was pointed to the gravestone, began to shake. And then Scrooge went on, "Good spirit," as down on the ground he fell before it, "your nature intercedes for me and pities me. Assure me that I yet may change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life." Appalled, Scrooge clutches at the spirit and begs him to undo the events of his nightmarish vision. And by the way, what is his nightmarish vision? Is it just that he's in the graveyard looking at where he's going for what he's been and done? And by the way, seeing part of what the Christmas ghost showed him were people who were laughing. They were glad he was gone. It was horrible. It was like the last thing anybody wants to ever see, hoping people will cry when they die. And they were toasting themselves, "Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. Assure me that I yet may change these shadows that you have shown me by an altered life." And he clutches it, begs him. He promises to honor Christmas from deep within his heart and to live by the moralizing lessons of past, present, and future. And as Scrooge continues to cry out for mercy, suddenly the phantom and his robe shrinks and collapses, and Scrooge suddenly finds himself awake in his own bed. Great story. Now listen to this. He finds himself awake in his own bed, and it's still Christmas Eve. 3 days have not passed, as when you read it sounded like. Scrooge had been carried off into another order of time in which past, present, and future are not disconnected, and in which they all serve a singular purpose, which is to reveal what a man or a woman does inwardly with their life cannot be separated in a future they imagine, and nor must they be tied to the past once they understand what the ghost of Christmas past is showing them. Are you following me, yes or no? Because I got to go on. Yes. I'm not going to make it. I have your permission to go on a few extra minutes. So there he is in his bed. The ghosts of the past, present, and future. Were they separate events or were they a single event? To our minds, a single event. I mean, a separate event, this day, that day, the next day, a separate event. But we can see through the eyes of Dickens, and unfortunately through our own eyes, they're not a separate event at all. Now take a deep breath. What is the resistance, the regret, or the disappointments that we find waiting for us almost every single day? What are those things? Are they not the visitation of the ghost of Christmas past? Am I not shown in that moment when I'm angry, impatient, when I've said the cruel thing, when I let greed determine the actions I take, when I'm suddenly so filled with fear and doubt that I'll go dump all of that on any unwitting soul? What are those moments when I see for a split second what it is that I am doing and what it is that is being done by my own actions in that moment, other than a split second when I'm transported back, in quotes, really just taken into the level of consciousness that for that moment is illumined enough for me to see that what I am doing isn't I at all, but belongs to something within me that is dedicated to ensuring it reincarnates itself regardless who it costs and what it does to me. Do you see that, yes or no? Is not most of our tomorrows the way that we meet them when they're filled with some kind of pain or torment? Are they not the bitter fruit of what we planted yesterday? Yes, they are. And if they are the bitter fruit, if that ghost shows me what I planted yesterday in the future, how foolish am I to look at that and not realize, you know what? Why would I turn? Did Scrooge beg for mercy, keeping intact his identity? Or did he recognize that his identity was in fact what had brought him to this moment where he was looking at his own future because he had been shown everything leading up to that? This is critical to understand because we have those moments all the time. You and I are visited by these ghosts every single day. Can you make the leap with me? I tried to put two very different things together so you could understand it. Yes or no? The ideas and images that promise to rescue us and release us, where do they come from? Where is every image, idea, belief that comes to rescue me from the ghost of Christmas past? From where does it come? My past. Every aspiration that one day I won't suffer the way I am. From where does that come? I'm looking at the future. Whose future am I looking at? A projection of the past. The fear of the past projected by that past so that one day I'll get past that terrible moment in my life. I'm not able to change. I'm the worst person that ever lived. You know those. I don't have to go through that. You all say it to yourself every day in thought and feeling. So these ghosts, they appear and they appear. And I intimated this at the beginning when I talked about this. Whose house do these things live in? Is there not a haunted house where I believe the rooms are separate and I just have to get from the room that's dark into the room that's light, only to find out that when I get into the room that's light, it turns into the room that's dark? It's within the framework of this consciousness that we're still identified with, that we don't recognize that we are inseparable from anything that appears to promise us we will escape our past by resisting or resenting it, regretting it sufficiently, and then planning a future where we say we've learned something. What I'm getting to here is this, and I bring this to an end. The only time and place such a healing integration is possible is in the great here and now. That is the only place that a healing is possible, because that is the only place in reality where what is incomplete is revealed by something that does so for the purpose of helping me see. I'm still living from this greed, from this impatience, from this demand, from this self-centered selfishness. I'm still living from it. Everything about my life centers around the Scrooge in this consciousness. And you're afraid to see it because you don't know what to do with it. Because all I know to do when I see something about myself that I don't like is what? Not like it. Yes or no? All I know to do is to resist something that is awakened in me that I don't want to see is in me. Yes or no? It is by a timeless light that, by the way, never stops acting. The breeze that never stops moving the bamboo. It is by a timeless light that never stops working to reveal what remains incomplete within us. And the beauty of this is, listen to me. See, you think that, well, there's some bad things that are incomplete in me. Yes, sir. There's a few things that are not so bad, incomplete, and a few things that are worse because I'm still carrying them around. Yes or no? There's no scale of better or worse in what is incomplete. Only the mind measuring it and comparing it to what it believes should be makes that differentiation. Incomplete is incomplete. We are, as human beings, you've heard the word in religious terms. We are failed, weak, fallen. Yes or no? What is that referring to? We're incomplete. Every creation under the sun is incomplete, because every creation under the sun requires being completed by the sun for it to fulfill the purpose of its existence. So every creature is incomplete. The difference between you and I is that in nature completes the creature, and the creature agrees with being completed, regardless the cost of its individual life. But you and I, when we are shown that we're incomplete, which is what that resistance is, any moment you feel resistance to a revelation, there is something in you resisting seeing where you are remaining incomplete and invited, by the way, to enter into what will integrate you. Every moment. But we go, no, I would rather hate myself. I would rather regret my life. I would rather wish that tomorrow will be better. I'm going to go to heaven. You'll see. And when I get to heaven, everything's going to be great there because you can eat chocolate without gaining weight. I read it. If you haven't read it, it's there somewhere, believe me. So here's the point of this. We have to learn to accept the ghosts, but not out of fear of them, meaning the shadows of the past, the shadows of the present moment, the shadow of the future. Everything that comes to stir in us and reveal to us the following, and I'll end with this. The lesson is being given to us. Every moment that Scrooge went on these journeys, he was being given a lesson, wasn't he? But he couldn't take the first lesson. He wasn't even interested in it. The second lesson had a little interest, but not too much. It wasn't until it got to the brass tacks part of the lesson that Scrooge became vitally interested, because he could see at last that he was standing at the gate of his future that was produced by his past. He could see they were inextricably linked. They were inextricably linked. But we see the inextricable linkage of the past and the future as separate times. They're not separate times. It's happening as I'm speaking to you. It is one time that a mind is divided up for the sake of developing this identity and it's made up time. Thought is time. Thought invents time. So when we turn to the middleman to tell us what do we do about the time we don't want, it says, here's another time. Here's the time you regret. Here's the time you hope for. The lesson that these moments reveal are not, how do I say, what we need to see about the lesson is that moment is not apart from us. You know how we look at lessons like there is the teacher, and then there's the lesson that's presented, and then there's the thing that we learn and then begin to act on. Don't we see things like that? The teacher and the lesson and the student are a singularity. Those are the three ghosts, by the way. The teacher, the lesson, and the student are a singularity. They have never been apart. They've always been a singularity. We don't see it as a singularity because here's the moment I don't want. What's the lesson in it? Then I think to myself about what the lesson is. Then I go, I learn the lesson. Then another day or a year or a month, 10 years down the line, I realize, Jesus, I didn't learn the lesson at all. It's still here. Why didn't I learn the lesson? You didn't learn the lesson because you didn't accept the presentation of the conditions that allowed you to see the truth of yourself. That's why you don't learn the lesson, because you're forever talking to yourself instead of seeing yourself as you're given these lessons. Every moment of life is this Holy Spirit, is this breeze, is this entrance into us of something that stirs this consciousness so that we can start to be aware of the totality of itself, not select parts that are pleasant and others that are punishing, dismiss, but to enter into the whole thing. So the lesson is in the revelation of the whole moment, not in something that you extract from the moment that is pleasing or otherwise consoling to you. You got that? So here's the exercise. I went on too long. Sorry, guys. Here's the exercise. Pretty simple. Catch the ghosts. Catch the ghosts. You know, you're sitting at your desk and you get an email and says, oh God, this has gone to hell in a handbasket. In that moment, what's your usual reaction? Oh, no, I can't take it anymore. No more of this. No. Yes or no? Yes. Yeah. See, what you're doing is you're looking at the ghost of Christmas past and what it's showing to you about your life up to that point. And it's saying, you need to see this. You need to see it, because if you don't see it, you're just going to keep doing the things you've done. You won't have love. You won't have a marriage with your own soul, which is what Belle represented in the story. You remain divided. Catch the ghosts of the past, and instead of rejecting them, what are you going to do? As best you know how to do. Welcome. Let me see as best I'm capable of seeing what it is that I am being shown right now. Because if I'll be willing as best I am to see what I'm being shown, I will never have to enter into those moments where I fear a future, because while I have used the present moment to transform the consciousness stuck in the past into a completely different creature that no longer fears past, present, or future, because it is the unification of those things and belongs to another order of time that cannot be subjugated by any ghost whatsoever. Got it? Let's take a break. Come back and have our dialogue.
Well, hello, everyone. All right, so now starts our Q&A time. And so let's get a good queue going. You can go ahead and raise your hand and your name will come up in the queue, or you can send a question in the questions area that will get relayed to me. As we wait for hands, what I'd like to do is just make a couple of announcements, if I might. So first of all, just if you're not familiar with the Life of Learning Foundation, we are a nonprofit organization, and we are the ones that sponsor these talks for free. And we do that based on kind donors out there who we're always grateful for. And we always like to invite you to do the same to help us continue to reach others out there in the world with a donation of any size. We have a great donation page, guyfinley.org/donate. You can check that page out. There's several different options that you can work to help us out with, and we hope that you do. And if it makes a difference to you, all donations made within the US are tax deductible. Secondly, the Life and Learning Foundation has 4 annual, what we call Weekends of Wisdom, and we have our second one coming up right around the corner here next weekend, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of June. So it's a 3-day event. Guy will give a talk each of the days, followed by a Q&A, and in person we'll have a meal here together and great social time. And if you are considering visiting here, these weekends are a great great time for you guys to come. So if you're considering doing that, guyfinley.org/weekend, we have a ton of information there for you. And the topic for that weekend is Enter the Never-Ending Flame of Self-Transformation. And you're already signed up with these classes, so you'll get the reminder when the class, the hour before class starts. But if you are not able to attend the actual live session, there will be a replays and download package that will be available to purchase for a nominal fee. Just know that. But Wisdom School members, premium and all access Wisdom School members will receive that package for free. Again, guyfinley.org/weekend. And if you have any other questions about this as well, just go to guyfinley.org/contact and we're here to help you. I think I covered everything there. All right, well, I heard Guy wants to say something as well. So before we get started with the Q&A, let me take myself off and have Guy come on.
So, I'm supposed to hang on. I'm probably not supposed to do this when we're live, but crew, you got to wake up. You can't go to sleep, especially those of you who have responsibility here. After the talk, my wife Patricia came up and said, "You didn't tell them the best part." I said, "Well, I had planned to do that after the break." So there are some things that you may or may not know, and some I know that you don't know, but I'll tell you what they represent in the remaining few minutes, then we'll get to what questions and answers we have. So there's Scrooge. He wakes up in the bed, and lo and behold, he finds out that Christmas hasn't happened. It hasn't been 3 days. It's still Christmas Eve, which means he still has time to do the things that he had said bah humbug to just before he went to sleep. And one of the things that he said bah humbug to was, A, he wasn't going to give Bob Cratchit any extra money so that his son Tim, little Tim, might have a wonderful Christmas, let alone, and then we find out, and if the original film of this was so fantastic, the book too, Scrooge, he's reborn. I mean, he is literally born. He's laughing, he's running around hysterical, so joyous because he's been awakened. And in the movie, the old movie, he's running down the stairs and the maid's coming up the stairs and he looks at her, he laughs and goes, "Merry Christmas!" She screams and throws this stuff in the air and runs out the door because he thinks Scrooge lost his mind. It's so delicious. But at any rate, he makes all of these changes, including giving Cratchit the money he needs so that little Tim can have the life-saving operation that he needs. Who do you think little Tim represents in this story? I come to heal the lame and the blind and the sick. And so Cratchit's rebirth was really the outcome and connected to the rebirth of little Tim, who was healed of his infirmities. One character, little Tim inside of Scrooge. I hope you can see it. I'm sure Dickens intended this, and if he didn't, then may he forgive me if I've improperly enlarged upon the meaning of the story, but in my heart of hearts, I know I'm not. He becomes a good man, and his future is not the future that he was shown, but becomes open-ended and full of all the goodness that he himself discovered. It's a beautiful story. Is that good enough? Okay. I had to ask my wife. Now I'm off, and if there are questions or comments, Terry, if there's anything in the chat that needs to be addressed, we can do it.
Okay, Guy. Well, I don't see any hands right now, but I do have a question that you can address. So I'm going to go ahead and bring myself on here. And this question, I believe, came in. Did I bring myself on here? Hold on. Yes. All right. This question came in today, I believe, and this is from Sally. And she said, all of your talks have helped me so much. Thank you very much. Sunday's talk, you mentioned the Seal of Solomon. Would you please elaborate?
Well, look, I'll be happy to give you a couple thoughts about the Seal of Solomon, but what if I told you that one day everything that you're struggling so hard to know, you will want to spit from your mouth? Not the spirit, not the heart, the mind that understands, but how tiresome it is, knowledge. Self-knowledge is not thoughts about yourself. Self-knowledge is not you knowing something about the crucifixion, the Christ, the Buddha, the Solomon seal. These were things that are passed down through time, intended to stir in you a sufficient interest so that in your interest you can discover that all of these things are within you. The Seal of Solomon, call it what you want, the Hebrew star, hexagram. Its perverted form is the pentagram used in certain Wiccan practices. The Seal of Solomon was essentially a design that was Solomon, King Solomon, was given. Said he was shown, or actually, the story goes he was actually given like a ring or something like that. It's just a story. But he was able to see and eventually make manifest, talk about, show this idea of the Seal of Solomon, which is basically two pyramids inverted that make a 6-point or a hexagram. The seal represents so many things, but basically it introduces to the mind able to see the, I don't know if you call it an anagram, the drawing, the picture, a relationship between heaven and earth, between the will of heaven and the will of earth. It reflects a cosmic order that's in place, not outside, not within, but all at once in everything, a cosmic order. It reflects the movement of the stars. It talks about the flow, the yin and yang of heaven and earth, all of these things in the Seal of Solomon. But it was intended to be a tool of meditation, not something that one walks about thinking and using. For instance, it was said that whoever controlled the Seal of Solomon had control over demons and angels. You could summon them and control them. As it was said of Solomon that he could do that. He could talk to the animals. That basically Solomon kind of represented the Adamic character, the return to another order of being. So all of that is represented in that idea of the Seal of Solomon. And that's enough on that. Anything else?
Well, no, we have no hands in the queue. Is there anybody in the room interested in coming up and speaking?
There is one hand.
There is. All right. Well, yes, there is. All right. I'll take myself off. And this is Rebecca. Here you go, Rebecca.
Good evening, Guy and everyone. I hope everyone is well.
Let me ask, is everyone well? Half so. Okay. On we go.
I'm gonna trust everyone is well, and we just all don't realize it. So, I just want to let you know my middleman is screaming like, that Guy Finley keeps exposing me. And so it was just earlier conversations, just earlier thoughts that I had. This talk was just really helpful because it actually got, I was kind of a woe is me, like, well, when I was younger, and I'm just trying to transcend that and blah, blah. And then you got me with this Scrooge story, which is actually one of my favorite stories too. So I just want to let you know, Guy, at least for me, your work just continues to help be a pointer and a reminder, and I deeply appreciate it. That's all I want to say.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for your comment. And I will add as a student comes up to speak. Scrooge was perennially negative. Perennially negative. That means negative all the time. One day you will realize that you can't be negative without being remanded over to some form of resistance that doesn't exist without the past, comparing the present moment to its expectation. And you will use the ghost, the shadow of negativity, to help you wake up and realize the reason you are identified with it is because you're still in the house where it lives and breeds and comes to carry you away. There is no greater waste of human life than negativity. None. None. One day I hope you'll get to the point where, and you might take this wrongly, rather than say something negative, you'd put a piece of duct tape over your mouth. You would do anything other than give voice to the parts of yourself that are punishing you and that want you to punish others and yourself for the sake of freeing yourself from that punishment, which you can't do. You die to that consciousness. You see through the middleman. And in that, you find freedom. Then the middleman serves the greater purpose instead of you serving the purpose of the middleman. Heidi's on stage.
Hello, my name is Heidi, and I like this talk. I like being shown the timelessness of life. And if I could go back and say something to the Heidi in the past, I could feel that that's saying to something to the Heidi now who is connected to both. So I appreciate everyone that shared what they would say to themselves. I would have said to myself, let yourself feel the pain and suffering. It's okay to suffer. I can very much sense that something within me didn't want to feel whatever it decided it shouldn't feel, and then welcomed what it thought was good.
Yes.
And life will let you do that, but that's out of order. It's unnatural. And so then you're picking and choosing what's being given in a moment.
It's picking and choosing. Not you. It's picking and choosing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge distinction.
It's the feeling I want you to wake up to. You all are so quick to say I, meaning identify with the state or the thought. It does that. You do not. Recognizing one day that that's what it does, you will no longer want to be a part of it, and you will have proper separation to become aware of it significantly enough for that separation from the wheat and chaff.
I mean, that would be the most beautiful thing to tell a younger self. Have some separation between what you see and what you hear, what you think and what you feel. What a great sport that would be instead of identifying with everything.
Indeed.
I just want to remember what was said and work with it, and I'm grateful to have heard the talk.
Thank you, Heidi. We're going to go next to Beatrice. Here you go. Looks like you have to unmute yourself, Beatrice. There you go.
Yes, here I am. Thank you so much. Hi, Guy. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Great blessing to be again in your talks, listening and absorbing. I wanted to share something very special. You were talking in your last part about the story of Charles Dickens.
Yes.
You were talking about he could see. And through your sharing, I felt like I was kind of blew into pieces, only to get reintegrated with so much serenity and peace. And let me share right now, I'm going through a process where I need a third surgery in my right eye. And great chances are that I will lose the vision or even lose the eye.
Yes.
And I've been telling my husband and my kids and grandchildren, I feel so close to the Apostle Paul, when he was thrown from the horse and he became blind for 3 days, only to be able to see, capital letters, see. And I've been telling my husband, I feel that I am in that journey. And I felt it connected so intimately with what you were leading us into with the story.
Yes.
So for me, so alive in my whole being, the lesson and what I was able to allow myself to be shaped by the words and the story.
Yes. And to that, Beatrice, I would say there is probably no better, more proper, spiritually speaking, perception of your condition than what you've just described, because it is integrated into a much bigger journey, a much larger understanding. You must and will, I trust, remain as true as you can to the remembrance of this understanding, because as sure as the tides ebb and flow, night and day moves through this world as it turns, the understanding will be challenged by the resistance and the reactions born of finding yourself in challenging conditions, unexpected, impossible things that will try to present to you the regret. You must remember the truth of these moments, and as you do, you will be released from the improper identification with the ghost of the Christmas past, let alone future. Something I was working on today. I have so much material to present. You will, and stay close, be able to turn those moments where instead of the peace that passes understanding, there'll be a torment that promises more of it. You'll be able to turn those around, because you'll turn around inwardly and see the truth of it. I'm glad for you, Beatrice. Stay close.
Yes, I will. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you. And Guy, that will wrap it up for this evening.
Good night, everybody.